Hello and welcome to the Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast,
which gives you, the listener, a series of hints and pointers on your journey as a musical artist.
providing you with interviews from those in the music industry, along with our own experiences.
Ben and James shine some light on the many pitfalls and opportunities that being a musician has to offer.
Last week we spoke to musician, author, former label owner and now music lecturer Pete Dale about vinyl, the costs of releasing a single and the time involved in running a record label. This week Ben is with Mercury Prize nominated singer-songwriter and adopted Geordie Kathryn Williams. With Kath we discuss songwriting for yourself versus others, songwriting classes and stage fright. Welcome to episode 16 with me, James, and him,
Ben. So James, two things about this episode.
Never know where you're going to go.
Yeah. One, I got something wrong. And two...
Have you started with that? Because at the top of my
No,
notes...
I just know. I just know. I went, yep. I also got something. I got a well done from Kath.
You did actually have a good idea.
Yes, I'm going to own that good idea and the bad one. So,
and you should, to be fair.
So in my defence about the error, I'm not a massive Velvet Underground fan.
Evidently.
Yeah. And the only way I know that song, which we'll get into in the interview, is because Martin Gore from Depeche Mode covered it on his album, or one of his albums. So I thought I was being extra clever, if I'm honest. So rightfully
that's
so.
That's what I particularly liked about it.
Yeah, rightfully so. It backfired. But then the good idea, which again we'll get into, I was quite happy with. But yes, so this week's episode is Kath Williams, or Kathryn Williams.
The Geordie Scouser.
What a mix.
Brilliant mix.
So we met at the Bridge Hotel in Newcastle.
Lovely pub.
It's a lovely pub. Where Kath, I think that's when, she says in the interview, where she basically was one of her first venues where she started.
Mm.
But surprisingly so,
upstairs.
Yeah, we never played there. And that's where...
We must have.
We never played the Bridge.
You lie. I'm now going to check our records that we don't have.
But we can get the fact-checking Santa out, and he'll tell us if he's right or wrong after. But I'm positive we didn't play the Bridge.
The fact-checking Santa.
That's just for anyone else who listens to the Adam Buxton podcast. When he's not too sure of a thing, he has this fact-checking Santa which comes on and goes, ho, ho, ho. He tells him if he's right or wrong.
What, even if it's in summertime?
Yeah. Especially when it's in summertime.
Is that what Santa does?
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of the year?
Yeah. Fact-check Adam Buxton's podcast.
Well, I guess someone has to.
Yeah, so talk at the start about where she kind of sits in the genres, and she doesn't really know herself. And then she used the brilliant phrase of behind the sofa, which I quite liked that, because it's kind of, do you need a genre? No, you don't. It was a very interesting chat with Kath, because it goes in a few different directions about what she does as an artist.
I think sometimes having a genre could be helpful.
You think?
Yeah.
Well,
if you're part of a particular scene. Not saying it's essential. Right?
No.
I think you dismissed the old...
I apologise to genres everywhere.
Oh, they're sitting in the corner quite upset at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm with Kath, falling behind the sofa. So, what was I even saying there? Oh yeah, so we talk about the different things she does. So as an artist, how she performs, and how she writes for herself, but how she writes for others, and that was really interesting. Yeah, we speak about that, and we also speak about her songwriting courses. That's where the good idea comes from, James.
Oh, no.
And there was actually one.
You had a good idea.
There was one this weekend just gone, and she put in pictures of like how they get on and stuff, and it looks like a really good experience for people. But also, I think you could do that yourself as well. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. We can talk about that.
You are.
I am. I really like. It was nice to meet Kath. It was a really nice.
Basically, you've gone away from key points to
key rambles.
So,
yeah, definitely.
Every time you put that down, it goes donk on the microphone.
I know. I've just noticed that. Yeah, is that being kept in? So
people
know what the donk is.
I'll decide later whether the donk of you putting a glass of apple and blackcurrant squash down on the table.
Don't call it squash in my presence.
What do you want to call it?
Diluted juice.
AKA squash.
What's squashed about it?
Well, you squash the berries, I guess.
There's no berries in this juice.
It's not added sugar as well.
That's a good thing.
Stay healthy, people.
Donk. Okay, so hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Oh, good, thanks, yeah.
Good.
At the Bridge.
Bridge, yeah, the Bridge Hotel in Newcastle. A bit of a change of venue for us. And we're speaking with Kath Williams here. So, firstly, I think we'll just get a bit about yourself. How do you fit into the music industry? Who's your audience? Where do you sit? Who do you play for?
It's a good question. Well, I've been in the industry 20 years, and through that I've gone through many guises. I was like in the new acoustic movement, I was in the singer-songwriter movement, and I've been lumped into all of those things. People say that I'm folk, although I don't do any traditional folk songs at all.
Yeah.
So I kind of fall down the back of the sofa of most genres, really.
That's a good way of putting it. I've never heard that phrase before. I suppose that's a good thing, though, because it means your audience is always changing, always different, and always quite probably there.
Yeah, well, I've got a very loyal audience that I challenge quite a lot, because I did an album of jazz standards with vibraphone and vocal, which was quite out there. I've done an album of covers, relations. I've done the album Over Flyover was a lot more sort of feedback, electric guitars. I did like sort of chamber pop with strings and orchestra stuff, and then much darker stuff with Ed Harcourt and stuff. So it's it changes a lot. I don't know whether that is keeping the audience or putting them off, but I like that I don't make the same album twice.
That's good, yeah. I suppose it's easy to do that as well, isn't it? From any artist as well. So does that keep it interesting for you as well as the audience?
Yeah, I'm always being challenged, and now I get asked to do projects and sort of say yes to them before I know if I can do them.
Right.
So this latest album, which is a soundtrack for a novel.
Yeah, that was interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. She called up and asked me if I would make real fictional greatest hits for a fictional artist in her book to go along with the book. And I thought, this is totally insane. But I said yes, because she seemed nice, and then worked it out over the 2 years after.
All right, okay, so it took about 2 years to do that one.
Yeah, to make and everything.
And does that normally happen in that way? Someone will approach you with like these weird and wonderful, well, weird sounds horrible, but weird and wonderful ideas. Or do you just think, right, I've got an idea, let's see how I can make it work?
It's different. I mean, at the moment I'm fighting to do my own albums, because since the Hypoxia album that Ed Harcourt produced, that came from a writing commission from Durham Book Festival to write songs to commemorate Sylvia Plath. So I did that, and then went back to the label I'm on, which is Bjork's label, One Little Indian, and said, I want to make this a record. And they said yes. So that came from a commission, and then the songs from the novel Greatest Hits came from someone asking me to do that. But yeah, it's just all natural. I mean, I've just finished recording an album with Michelle Stoddart from the Magic Numbers.
Okay, yeah.
And that's like us. We've called it Clit Rock.
Right, okay.
Instead of Clit Rock. Yeah. It's kind of like the Bangles meets some sort of 80s rock band, and that's going to be good fun.
Cool. That sounds like an interesting concept as well. Bangles meets
some sort of. It's kind of like a bit like sort of 80s indie rock meets the Bangles kind of thing. Yeah, so that's good, and it's nice because Michelle was on the last album, and Romeo, her brother, produced the songs from the novel Greatest Hits. So I kind of got a gang of people that I know.
That's good.
And that came from this songwriting and having a group. It's become like a sort of team and a family within music. I started doing songwriting retreats. I teach at Arvon. I've taught with Roddy at Moniac, and I've taught with Tom McRae and Chris Difford and Sam Parton from the Be Good Tanyas at different things where people come and pay to learn how to songwrite, which is kind of mad. And we get paid to teach them, but we don't really teach them, we just create a space that's good for them. I do these retreats that I invite 10 to 14 people who do it full time like me, and whether that's Michelle and Romeo, or it's Teddy Thompson, or Steve Naive, or just people from all around the world, and they come. I do an invite form, and you have to be able to tick 2 things: 1, that you're kick-ass talented, and 2, that you're not a dick.
Right. The second one does sound very...
and occasionally, if they're really talented, I might let them come even if they are a dick. So I did 4 of them down in Stroud, and we had this hotel, which was a venue, and I put people in groups of 2 or 3. We'd write for the day, and then in the evening in the pub, we'd all sing the songs that we'd written that day to each other, and we do it for 4 days, and just sort of builds it up and combines like what I do with my songwriting with just because I don't really see many people up here in music. All my friends in music are elsewhere.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Newcastle then?
I did an art degree.
Right.
I came up and did an art degree and then stayed. Met my husband who owns the Pink Lane Bakery.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And fell in love with the place really.
Right.
I've been here longer than I was in Liverpool, which is why my voice has gone all weird.
It's a nice mix. So just going back a little bit about your own songwriting, how do you approach the songwriting? Like does it differ from when you first started playing places like the Bridge to now when you play places like the Sage? Or
it changes. I mean, it shifts and moves. It's different when I write for myself. It's I would say that it's like the difference between being a fine artist and being like a graphic designer. And so when I'm writing for other people, it's like a graphic designer where I have like a framework.
Okay.
And I have to take into considerations, their voice, what they want to get out, what they want to hear, what they want to be. And when it's me, I'm just like in front of my own canvas and I can kind of daydream and not necessarily pinpoint exactly what I want to do, so I can go off creatively.
Okay. And do you use the same type of structure in your own writing that you would do in like one of these retreats?
No, I don't have any rules for songwriting. I mean, people often in interviews, like for years and years, the question was, what comes first, the words or the music?
Yeah.
And it's never that simple. I mean, I suppose it's how you relate to people. I mean, songs to me are like the friends you don't expect to be friends with 10 years later. If you look around at the friends that you've got, it's not necessarily what you would have picked out in a line, but, but you grow attached to them and you find their little quirks. Mm-hmm. So all the songwriting happens because I open myself up without any boundaries. Okay. So I don't necessarily, sometimes I can hear a bus go over a crack in the road and I really like that beat, and that sort of gets me thinking about how a beat can work alongside a melody over it, or two people walking hand in hand who are old, and so I'm always writing, I'm always taking note on stuff.
It comes from anywhere.
Yeah,
that's good. I can't really speak for James who wrote the lyrics in our band, but I think that's probably a good way of doing it, because then you're always open to stuff, aren't you, really, rather than just having a set structure. Yeah, cool. So you said before, when you write for others, you've got like a nice graphic design sort of framework to work in. How does that come about from the process? Do you do it from like a 9 to 5? Do you think, right, I'm going to do it as a job, or do you just think, comes when it comes, and this is what I'm thinking about?
No, I get phone calls and I get people asking to write with me, or going down to Rack Studios, or going over to Sweden at the moment and writing an album for a really big artist over there, and they fly me over and I go in the studio and write for the day with the producer and the artist. Or I go to somewhere like a publishing house like Music Sales and sit down with the songwriters, and they have like a plan of artists and what they want on the wall. Yeah. Or sometimes I'll take a chance and think about an artist and write kind of in their voice. I've done that a few times and then use the songs myself. It's good. You just you sing it in your head as if it's their voice,
right,
and how they would intone and how they would pull it together. So it's quite nice singing in character.
Cool. So have you ever written a song for yourself and thought, you know what, this would work for an artist like insert the blank, and thought, you know, I'm going to keep it just in case, or do you think, no, this is my song?
A bit of both.
Right. Or have you ever went, that song's really good, I'm keeping that for myself?
Yes, I've definitely done that. I wrote a song with a bloke called David Saw in the Rack Studios in London, and I met him through Chris Difford. He works a lot with Carly Simon and Ben Taylor in America, and he wanted to write like a really simple love song, and I wanted to get my teeth into something a bit more. So unbeknownst to everyone else, I was writing the lyrics, imagining it was a love song to a therapist.
Okay.
But it was like open enough to just be taken as a love song. Mm-hmm. And that got picked up by a woman in France who used it to win Nouvelle Star, which is X Factor over there.
Oh, right, okay.
So that was mad. And kind of weird to hear it and see it. Because then if you write a song and then an artist takes it on and you've written the song in full, then it becomes... it's quite strange when it's like going into your into a house you owned and someone else has moved in and redecorated.
Yeah.
It sort of jars a bit because
Right.
you know how it should be and they've made it their own.
Yeah. This might sound like a cross question, but it's not meant to be. Just in case someone's interested, do you sell the song, or do you own the song and they perform it and you get money on the back end, or...?
Yeah, you own... the way it works for me, I've never sold a song.
Right.
There's artists who... so if they want the song, if you've co-written it, the writers and the producers who you've been in a room with, you generally take a third each or a half each, and then that's the publishing rights that you get back from PRS every time it's played. I have worked with some artists who have been in the room, and for being in the room they want an equal share of the song, but it's better to get like a third less for a song that's going to be used by an artist. So
yeah, and I suppose if you're proud of the song, whoever's singing it, at least it's out there as well, I guess, as well.
Yeah, it's just it does amuse me sometimes, because I do know that there are some songwriters who sit in the room and their permanent job is to just sit in the room with the right people so that they can get it there.
Wow. Well, good work if you can get it, I guess.
Yeah, but I would much rather be the grafter.
Yeah, definitely. So, in the whole world of songwriting, your own songwriting collaboration, what draws you to collaboration?
Well, for years I didn't do any collaboration. In fact, for the first 3 albums I was racked with stage fright, agoraphobia, panic attacks. In fact, I would even in the recording studio, even the engineer would have to press record and leave. Everyone had to leave because I couldn't physically sing with anyone watching me. And when the Mercury thing happened and everything went big, kind of pissed on the chips a lot, because I would be asked to do Jules Holland or all of these things and I couldn't ever quite make it. So they'd call me and say, "Are you in the studio?" And I'd say, "No, I got off the train at Peterborough. I can't do it. I've turned around." So I've forgotten what the question is. I went off on one.
No, I got drawn in the answer. So what draws you to collaboration?
So that sort of stopped that. I worked with a bloke called Dave Scotton, who was in my band, who lives up here and is fantastic. And we would write in his flat just by Pink Lane, actually.
Okay.
But it wasn't until that band disbanded and I'd been doing some shows at the Barbican, like sort of big collaborative shows, and I met a man called Neil McCall, whose mum is Peggy Seeger and his dad's Ewan McCall, sister Kirsty. And and we decided that we'd write a record together, and that kind of changed my life, really, because I didn't have to be the person who was that nervous person. Mm-hmm. So we went in and we wrote 20 songs in 4 days, and then recorded everything in 4 days with a band, and we were all in the studio. And that changed how I worked. And then the other big person in my life is Chris Difford from Squeeze.
Yeah.
And he invited me to a songwriting retreat like the ones I do myself. And that's where I met David Saw, met lots of other artists, and started to write with people I didn't know. And from that came the songwriting for other artists around the world.
Oh, that's cool. Yes, I suppose it's kind of like being in a band, but also having your own space, if that makes sense as well.
It's kind of being in a band, but getting to choose who's in the band each album. So you can change the flavours. So I had the same band for I think it was 4 or 5 albums. I had the same band, and then it changed, and now I have people that I go back to. But it's like a different colour palette, and so I can decide what the record's going to be, and then handpick the people that I want and the producers and where I want to do it and how I want to do it to affect the overall sound.
Oh, that's cool. So how did it come about with Bombay Bicycle Club as well? I noticed those who were featuring on a song of theirs.
Yeah, I did. Well, so Neil McCall's son is in Bombay Bicycle Club.
I didn't know
Jamie
that.
McCall, yeah.
You would have thought I would have done the research on that bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I was just in the studio, and so they asked me.
That's
so I
a good
did
tune,
it.
that one. I like that one, yeah. So you mentioned briefly there about the Mercury nomination. That's completely alien to me how it works. Like, do you...
Me too.
Do you have to put stuff forward, or does someone go, this album really fits what we're doing at Mercury?
No, you have to enter
You have to actually enter it.
So the record label does that.
Right, okay.
But I was the record label at that time.
Right.
Because I set up Core Records for Dog Leap Stairs, which I made for £80.
Yes.
I went in Sam's studio that used to be round there, behind the cathedral, in downtime, and just asked for favours. And then on the second album, Little Black Numbers, that cost £3,000, and that was a lot at the time because I was like working in cafes and saving up to go in the studio. So I entered it from my label, and then I had to attend the nomination shortlist award as the label, but I was the only artist who was there as also the label, and I ran and hid round the pub around the corner. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know how it works as well, because I would love to get another Mercury nomination. Yeah.
So was that the first thing that really pushed you over as well into the, not I wouldn't say the mainstream, because I don't know what that means really anymore, but into the public eye?
Yeah, well, from that, I got asked to sign a major label deal with Warner's.
Right.
So they took that album and 2 others. So I suddenly had money, backing, a much bigger scope, going to America, getting it release around the world instead of just in the UK. Yeah, it was an amazing thing, and even now, that was 17 years ago, and I still get called Mercury nominated, and I'm like, brilliant, okay. It's lasted so well. Better than any of my items of clothing, or, take it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the collaboration part we spoke about, and the different albums we've spoke about, and almost, as you say, the different colour palette each time, and the different feel each time, especially the new album, with writing from a different person's perspective for a soundtrack for a book, really.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, do you have any favourites? Because that's a really bad question. But
do you?
Yeah, but do you have any favourites? And how? I'm trying to work out, how do you get in the different mindsets, basically? How do you put one hat on and take the other one off and think, right, this is solo, this is for someone else, this is for a specific project? How strict are you with yourself?
I don't think it compartmentalises in that way. It's just that you have different parameters and boundaries. So on some of my own albums, I'll write 2 character. Some of them will be sort of musings just from me, but I kind of think that if you are writing 2 character, like I was for Cass Wheeler on this album, I'm empathising and being her and thinking about her voice and thinking about where she is and what's going on, but it's still coming from me. So in a certain respect, you never get away from your perception of what it is, so it'll always have a thread of you. I suppose the more complicated thing, like the novel Greatest Hits thing, that had to span 50 years. So it was trying to sort of nod towards those decades and those things without being pastiche.
Got you.
That was a really difficult thing, and that's where Romeo came in and really helped, and the Dave Lynch in the studio with all of his different ideas and like crazy machines that would be used in the 80s or in the 70s. Yeah. So there's different things at different stages. Yeah. I mean, when I teach songwriting at Arvon Foundation, I mean, when they first asked me about teaching and advice and things like that, I was like, what are you on about? I can't teach. I don't know half the time what I'm doing when I'm writing. And I think that's important to put across. I think there's lots of people who give answers of what songwriting is or what music is or how they do it. And it's in retrospect, and it's almost like they're finding out an answer to give someone that is an easy way to explain to them how to do it. And I think that often that's misleading. Mm-hmm. I think if you get up and you do work and your lunch hour is here doing this with me, or you go back to your house and you have an urge to write something, it comes because of a need and a want, and that's not always to be explained. What is to be gained from songwriting and writing is like most writing. You keep doing it. It's the art form, writing, making music, making art. It's the only thing you can do in your life that the more you do, the more you get, and it never runs out. It never runs out. So you're building it. You will always have more. You can always write another song, and each song you learn from. Yeah.
Do you see now, like listening back to the earlier stuff, like a progression as well, as on like the things you've learned? Do you feel like you can?
Yeah, no, loads more chords now.
Or do you think actually, I know how I ended up with that song because a few songs didn't work for whatever reason when you were writing them, you didn't like them, so I've kind of took a different direction and thought, I can see the charted path of my writing? Or
for every 10 songs that make it onto an album, I usually write about 50.
Right.
So there's a plethora of songs that haven't made it, and some of them are really great, but you have to work out if some will fit in an album, or if you have two the same, or just if it just didn't make the mark that time.
How do you discard them? How do you think? Are you just ruthless, or do you think, can I work on this one because I really like a phrase? Can I steal a phrase for another song?
Yeah, you've always got them. You know, it's best to plagiarise from yourself than from anyone else. Yeah. But it's painful. It's really painful leaving a song off an album. There's an album called Crown Electric, and I put too many songs on it because I didn't want to choose between them, but it would have been a better album with less tracks. And also there was 2 tracks that didn't make the album that I still feel really pissed off about. But the good news is that doing One Little Indian are doing a retrospective 20 CD box set with a book of all my career, because they bought everything back.
All right.
So hopefully those things will get onto extra CDs.
Yeah.
B-sides.
I think we do miss B-sides a bit nowadays. With we don't really get by singles in the same way, do you?
Yeah.
A lot of my favourite songs are B-sides.
I know.
It's strange, and people experiment with covers and stuff like that.
I know, I love B-sides.
Yeah, it's something that I think we miss. For the better, for the worse, definitely for the worse, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but I don't know, I think it just gives you more material as a fan.
Yeah.
But also, some of the B-sides, if you think of Oasis, for example, a lot more experimental as well.
Yeah.
Like, even the Master Plan, which is probably their best song, was a B-side. It's a peculiar thing. I think it's a good place to keep ones that you never know might make it. Like Maggie May, for example, was the B-side, wasn't it?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, I was managed by Alan McGee for 8 years, and then he found Oasis and that, and we talked quite a lot about that sort of thing. In fact, the 2 albums that I made when I was with him, well, it was actually Relations and then Over Flyover and Leave to Remain. Those 3 albums when I was with him. We talked loads about those albums being B-side albums, which was it's quite interesting that you noticed that with Oasis.
Yeah, because, well, the Master Plan was a B-side album as well, and that's possibly... Well, it's like the best of the isn't it? So that's probably why it sounds like one of their best albums, but I really enjoy it. And Relations is something I want to pick up on, because cover albums are quite bold to do, aren't they, really? Because it's the other people's songs, but I do like a cover. I don't know why. I just don't know why. I think it's when you hear other people doing other people's art in their way. And I was looking at the songs this morning to remind myself. So Hallelujah is a great one. It's a very bold choice.
Yeah, well, I was doing that from about 2000, and then I had to stop doing it because it just went into like this stratospheric song that everyone does with being on the X Factor and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I toured a bit with Jeff Buckley's band in France, and so it's all like connected there. But it's very big. Yeah,
because other ones on there, there's like All Apologies on there, Spit on a Stranger, Pavement, because I love Pavement.
Me too.
But the one that made us think that is a bold choice was Candy Says, and I was like, that's a weird Depeche Mode song. That's not a Depeche Mode song, that's a Martin Gore solo song, isn't it?
It's Velvet Underground.
Is it as well? Oh, right.
Yeah, that's who wrote it.
Oh, right,
so
that's where I've got...
It's a Lou Reed song, so yeah. And Velvet Underground are my favourite band, so...
Right. Oh, well, there you go. For anyone who thought... Because I was like, I only know it from Martin Gore doing it. And I was like, that is a deep cut, basically. But yeah, I do like that we started doing covers for a little bit, mainly at the end of our sets, just to, I don't know, kind of just left on a bit of a familiarity for people.
Yeah, I often do that. I do an encore with a cover. It's kind of nice. It's like it's a really great way to pull it apart, put it back together again. I think I often explain it like a watch, like you have this song that's like a pocket watch or something. You take the glass off and then you see how it works and put all the things, and then you go, oh my god, this is completely in pieces, and then you have to put it back together and work out what it is you want to add to something that's been around. So
that's actually a question that popped in my head when we were talking about your songwriting courses and retreats.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably one of the last things we'll talk about. When you do the songwriting retreats, do you have a day of workshopping songs with the little groups? Do you ever get the other groups to play the other people's songs and see if they can interpret them in a different way or anything like that, or just...
No, but that's a great idea.
I'll claim it just for
that. It is a really good idea. I mean, a lot of the things that I do is build a group community so that it's a safe environment. I think everyone's really nervous and they want to they want to say who they are. And I think that the worst sort of songwriting classes are to a formula. You get this quite a lot where it's people wanting to teach you how to write songs the way they write songs. Yeah. So I don't do that. I often set up scenarios. What I like to do is set them a task in groups where the task is the same, and when they come back at the end of the day, you hear how different all those songs are from the same input, and I think that's a massive lesson.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So how do people get involved with that? I know you said you've got your 2 burning questions that you always ask them. How do people find out about it, apply for it?
Well, the ones that I do, they're not for people to apply to. They're like they're sort of people who do it as a full-time job, like me. The Arvon retreats that I do, the Arvon Foundation is a website, and they do. You just apply. You send in a couple of songs, and you apply, and then you get to stay in a beautiful thatched cottage in Devon, or in a in Ted Hughes's family home in Yorkshire, or and then you spend 5 days just like, because you know what it's like with all of us. I mean, I've got family and kids, and I have this as a full-time job, but even then trying to squeeze that time in creatively into your life. And I think that a lot of people, instead of going on a cheap holiday to like Magaluf or something, they go and spend 5 days and come away with 10, 12 songs at the end of it. So,
have you had anything come out of these sessions where you think, oh, I've recognised that song, we did that in a session, it's on the radio or whatever? Or...
Yeah, I have.
That's good.
On the Moniac Moor retreat that I did with Roddy, we found this bloke, Jamie, who he works in the North Sea as a fisherman. Okay. Never played any of his songs to anyone before he came on the retreat. And during that week, we got him to sing a song. Then BBC Scotland came to do filming TV. We got him to sing his song on TV. And then at the end of the week, we did a concert, me, Roddy, Rachel Samani, and we got Jamie to come and do a couple of songs then. So from never ever playing in front of anyone, all that happened. And then we got him a bursary from Moniac to go in the recording studio. So he had 2 days in the studio with Roddy, and now he's got like an EP.
That's cool.
And
That's
he's done like 6-7 festivals this summer.
Right.
So, you know, it can really help and happen. And I do work a lot with people to try and get them where they want to go. It's like a nice way to...
Yes, it's like a wholesome... I don't want to say the TV programme, but it's like a good way of like exhibition yourself without having that ridicule of the TV side of it. And getting not exposure as such, but like confidence, I guess, in some cases.
Yeah.
So, with all of this, songwriting for others, collaborating with others, album after album, and retreats, how do you manage to fit in gigs and festivals? How do you choose the festivals you do and the shows you do?
Well, usually if I get asked, I say yes.
Right. Okay.
I did Iona Festival. I did Glastonbury Saturday night, which was like a really big kind of headlining show, and that was amazing. Yeah, I do the things that I think will get, because I think the problem is that, you know, I've been doing it for a long time, and I think a lot of people know my name or have heard of me, but haven't heard my music. So what's important to me is to at least give them the chance to hate it after hearing it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's so it's just trying to reach new people all the time. Because I used to take a chance in a record shop, and I know people can take a chance with Spotify and with Last FM. You know, new things come up all the time, and Six Music's great, but it isn't the easiest way to step out of what you normally know. And that's what I would like to do more of.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Well, we're just coming to the end there. I see we've got a good amount of time there. So at this point in each episode, we talk to our guests about any good causes or charitable work that you do. Is there anything that you want to highlight on the podcast to get the word out there, highlight websites or where you get involved?
I did a charity event for the Percy Hedley Foundation recently, which is North East, based with children with disabilities. Yeah. That's an amazing charity. I'm really, really closely associated with the Dyslexia Foundation and the Autism Society, and I think those sort of things can get overlooked because they're quite sort of hidden. But I think they can really help people, and not being understood or feeling isolated can really affect your life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Excellent. What we'll do is we'll put stuff in the show notes, websites, links for people to look into it or get involved wherever they wish.
Well, I was going to recap on you getting it wrong, but you probably want to start on your good idea.
No, let's recap on me getting it wrong. Let's get it out there.
Well, I said it in the intro. The bit that I liked most about it was how pleased you were with yourself, what you were coming out with.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that.
For an interview, again, you did solo, I was perfectly honest. I didn't know that much about Kath, and I found incredibly interesting. And it sounded like she was someone really easy to get along with and just talk to.
Definitely, I think that's what comes across in the interview. But also, it didn't really feel like, as in, you are meeting this person who has got a career in music, who's been very successful, writes for, as she mentions, people who live in something that looks like the White House in Sweden. So you're obviously on about a massive star.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking to her at the bridge, like we've known each other for quite a while. Actually, it was a really easy chat. And
well, Mercury nominated.
Mercury nominated, yeah. Maybe I know a bit more about Kath than yourself because I have listened to her stuff before, but I can't say I've listened to everything in detail which was spoke about. But the bits I do know I really like, and the covers album, which is where the mistake comes from, is I do like the odd cover here and there, and that album is really good.
You made that clear.
Mm-hmm. So let's just start with covers. Actually, why not? We're here.
Well, you have. We're here anyway. You already have. Yeah.
I liked it when we did covers. I don't want to distract away from to try and be a covers band or anything like that, but I think they're very useful in the right time. I've spoke about this before.
Yes, I agree, but I think on reflection, when we did do covers, we didn't necessarily all of the time do them completely differently. But I enjoyed doing them. Towards the end of a set, would throw one in, and I thought they were fun to play a lot of the time. Particularly when you're a band or a musician that's just sort of starting out and at a point where a lot of people come to see us wouldn't know our music initially. To have some that they're instantly going to recognise and
just catches the ear a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd ever want to do a whole album personally, but
everyone takes it at the time, I guess.
Each to their own.
Yeah. So
nothing against that.
No. So moving away from covers, 'cause that's where my dangerous territory is. What was one of the main things that Kath and I were talking about?
Well, the songwriting camps I thought were interesting. So for anyone starting out as a musician, we've covered in a few episodes already how you'd go about songwriting. And, well...
Firstly, there's no right or wrong answer.
Indeed. But to a lot of people who might just stare at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper and I still don't know where to go. I don't know. And Kath was saying that the whole, do the words come first, or does the music come first, or what is it? But it could be that whether it's an actual songwriting camp or whether it's getting together with other people just to talk about.
Similar to what Ross was saying about the bunker.
Yeah, then I can see that being really helpful in whatever form that takes. Mm-hmm. I think a collection of people discussing it is...
Same mindset, want to get the same thing out of it, yeah.
Yeah, and particularly if you, I'd imagine going to a songwriting camp, you'd be surrounded by other people who are there because they haven't totally nailed songwriting yet. Mm-hmm. So you'd potentially be on the same part of your journey, your career as other people, and that can breed a bit of confidence.
Yeah,
it's not just thinking like you're
I'm
there.
the only one that can't write songs. Yeah,
yeah.
Everyone can write songs. No, they can't.
So I think there'll be a lot of benefits to putting yourself in that sort of environment.
Yeah, and I think the whole part about going away somewhere, it seems quite remote where they go, and it's got a nice community feel to it.
Well, in the Roddy episode, he spoke about the importance of having a creative space.
Yes, that's true.
I said in that episode that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Somewhere to get your mind into a different place, that creative sort of mindset. And so it makes sense that when they hold those songwriting camps, it is somewhere out the way.
And I also think she made a really good point, which I think a lot of people don't adhere to, is don't be a dick. It's a key point. I'm keeping a key point in that one as well, because you'll get a lot more out of it if you are good with other people.
Yeah, well, you don't want to go onto that sort of course and be surrounded by anything other than people who want to help everyone else get on.
Definitely.
So,
So I was going to say something then actually about songwriting camps, but also songwriting itself. I thought it was interesting when she said, yeah, you mentioned it yourself about getting the words first or the music first, but it could just be the sound of a bus going over pot of grass and getting a rhythm from it. I'm saying that's really interesting, because sometimes getting riffs for us, I did similar things, just like hearing something and just tweaking it in my head. And this is where probably Kath and I are different, because she's got a lot more talent. But when I heard something, I want to try and recreate it and could not do it a lot of the time. But then it would breathe something else, and that's how I got riffs for certain songs.
Well, so what I liked about, whether it was the walking down the street or whatever, Kath was saying she always is taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that, because I was used to, certainly from a lyrical point of view, I would often, if I was just about to go to bed, I'd think about something, so I'd maybe just get my phone out and write some notes, or I might be walking down the street going to get the metro or whatever it might be, and there'd just be things that come, and it might just be a one line, I just store it, but I'd also sort of have there's that phrase, sentence, lyric, whatever, and here's the type of sound or song, so I might reference another song of a big band or artist and say, right, it's that type of tune that's in my head when I'm thinking about that sort of thing, and put those two bits together. But I always thought there was things often that if I was with Kev, he'd sort of be like, right, well, once when we were on a train somewhere abroad, and there was just an interesting rhythm when it was sort of going over the
clickety-clacks.
Over the clickety-clacks. There was just a nice sort of beat, and he'd be like recording it, and so you might be able to like factor that in, stuff, and other bits and pieces, and we never got round to using some of those things, those sound effects, because I mean, these days it'd be pretty easy to take that one good sound and just loop it, and or use it for whatever reason, and I could see that being quite interesting, taking your sounds, noises from anywhere and turning it into something usable.
Yeah, I would agree. I can only think of one we used when Kev got all entranced and recorded Rain for one of the starts of the songs. Now it's the only one I can think of, but yeah, you're right.
That's when we used the Thunder Tube as well.
Yeah, oh yes.
Everyone should try using a Thunder Tube at some point.
Oh yeah, get that on the beat. So, you mentioned before, in the first part of the show here, that about Kath's early performances and stage fright, really. And it was quite open and honest about her when Kath and I were talking about how she didn't go to some things because of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, even when she was saying to the point that in the recording studio, the engineer would have to press record and then leave before she could sing, and that was interesting. I remember the first time we ever went into the recording studio, the first time I had to sing, I felt really odd.
I bet.
And it was sort of the way we recorded sort of as a band, and I'd sort of just be like...
Very live, isn't it, what we did, yeah.
But then, after all of the music had been laid down, I'd then go into the
That's why we always went to the pub, to give you that space.
Booth to then go and sing. But again, it felt very odd and alien, because it's not something he'd ever experienced before, that sort of situation. You then have headphones on, and you'll be in this... Well, it depends on the room, but, with someone staring at you through a booth, like saying, right, sing it good now.
For the record, none of us did that.
Well, no, but it's that sort of
feeling.
Yeah. And, yeah, well, I can imagine if, for certain people, that is a big thing to overcome, and like you're saying, to be sort of getting invited to going to Jules Holland and stuff,
big
and
thing.
just feeling like you can't do it, then that's a big hit to your confidence, and being able to take the next step.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be an easy thing for a lot of people to instantly get over, but I think it's definitely something being mindful of, that it's not uncommon. So if
it's not uncommon, yeah, you're not similar to the songwriter thing.
Yeah, if that happens to you, it's not an unnatural thing, and don't be afraid or ashamed or that it's happened to you, because you won't be the first. You certainly won't be the last that it's happened to.
Definitely
and
not.
It's something that to work through and eventually sort of come through, but it might take a while.
Mm-hmm. And also when you've got the musical chops, as they say, to back it up, though, you just got to persevere with it. So obviously Kath can sing, she can write, she can play the guitar and accompany her lyrics. So it's just getting through that little bit. It's a strange one because I got it and didn't get it. I got nervous energy before I went on stage, as in I want to do this, I really want to do this. It's going to happen in 2 seconds. Alright, I can't stop it now. It's like jumping off a diving board into water. You really want to do it, and when you do it, you think, I don't know why I'm doing this, and then you hit the water, and you think, yes, that's why I'm doing it. So I can kind of relate, but not relate in the same way because didn't get that complete stage fright. So,
but I think nerves can be a good thing.
I think they are a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to help with the performance almost.
Mm-hmm.
But not if it gets to the point where it's obviously sort of crippling you almost.
Yeah.
Well, going on in the different in and out of genres bit, I think one thing that she talked about was, well, she mentioned a bit about having a colour palette, and that's the second person after Roddy had also mentioned something similar. But I guess as a solo artist, she's got a number of different people that she's worked with over the years, and she can almost is in a position where she can sort of pick her band for each album that she wants to do.
Yeah, that was interesting.
If she wants to do one that's sort of more towards a particular genre, she'll have friends, professionals that she's worked with that she think, right, these people will be ideal to do this sort of thing. So I think that was an interesting point, for if there are any solo artists out there listening, then build up relationships with people, musicians, because whilst you might not need that type of musician today, they might be really handy for that project that you might do down the line that goes off in a slightly different direction. So I think she said something like she builds like a gang around her of people. So yeah, again, that sounded like it would be something that would give you a lot of flexibility. So when you come to say, right, what's my next album, EP, single, whatever going to be, you've got all sorts of options. Actually, I could get such and such involved, and I might do something that's got that sort of vibe to it next time.
Yeah,
right.
It's funny she mentioned that because I was just about coming to a similar point about having the collaboration with so many different styles of artists. Like she mentioned Ed Harcourt, Chris Difford from Squeeze, Magic Numbers, stuff like that. And also tying that in with the genre thing that we already mentioned in the not really fitting into any one thing. That, and I said the phrase, challenging our audience. I think that's important as well, because it's quite easy to not get stuck in a rut, but just do the same album just a little bit different next time. The same album just a little bit different next time. If you look at Kath's back catalogue, yes, there's an undercurrent thread that's very similar throughout. It's obviously her vocals and the way she plays and the sort of things she sings about. But all the albums could be different artists doing them, and I think that's great, because if you are a hardcore Kath Williams fan, you're probably going to get them all. And she said she's going to release them all in one big set anyway. But for me personally, I might think, well, you know what? I like her stuff, but I really like the Relations album. I might just pick up that one. Or I might just pick up the new one, the Greatest Hits one, which is not a Greatest Hits one. It's a concept for that book, which again,
that must have been tricky. That,
but again, she's challenging herself. She's challenging her audience, and with like the likes of the songwriting retreats, it's a similar type of ethos, if you will, challenging herself, challenging the audience, challenging the people that come on that.
Yeah, I like the whole challenge the audience bit. I think there's maybe a bit of trust in the fan base as well to say, look, I'm going to do something slightly a bit different, but you know what, you
can handle it.
Yeah. It's all good. Go with it. And
that's not to say it's like, let's do a concept album that's really hard to get and that's really challenging, and like
there's challenging, there's challenging.
Yeah, of course. Like what we mentioned about other artists who do things that are different to what they're expecting. Kind of keeps it a bit fresh and it keeps it more interesting. It's why you do it, really, isn't it? going from one style to another, but having that undercurrent of familiarity for the fans. And yeah, just got a lot of strings to a bow, as they say. So the other thing I wanted to mention as well was the songwriting. So songwriting for herself and songwriting for others.
I liked the bit when she was just talking about, and I was getting into the mindset of, if this person is the person who's going to sing it, then I think getting into their mindset, and how would they, deliver it or whatever it might be. But I feel like that's something that a songwriter could potentially do anyway. If you were suffering from the classic writer's block, thinking, well, what am I going to do next? So, well, what if I was that person and I was going to write that type of song? And it could just be another way of approaching it.
Definitely. LaRue, the artist, I was watching an interview with her, and she said when she was collaborating with her songwriter, he said to her, let's write a song like this song, like if they were going to write a song as big as that. And I think you're right. If you've got writer's block, let's say, how can I write a song that David Bowie would sing? That's grandiose, isn't it? I think one of the biggest artists of all time. But why not? How would he or she go about writing a song? And can I write one like it? And it might end up nothing like a Bowie song. It's where you've got to. Two other things that Kath was saying. The first one, trying to get it, which is writing for the people, getting that kind of worky structure, really, isn't it? Of not a 9-to-5 job, because that's not how it works, but it's like a 9-to-5 job. And then afterwards, we were talking about what we're going to do for the rest of the afternoon. This wasn't recorded, and she's saying, well, I'm going to go home, do the kids' tea, and then fix a chorus for this person I'm writing on. And that just it blew my mind and baffled us. I was like,
fix a
chorus. So I was asked the question, so this wasn't on the recording, of what
have you kept all the goals?
No, we're just chatting, and I went, it's just a question that popped in my head of how it works. And sometimes it's a whole song, sometimes it's a whole album, like this one in Sweden, Gothenburg, she was talking about. But sometimes it's just fixing a chorus. Like, I kind of get...
Right, so someone else has got stuck at a
got the
point,
verse, got the bridge. I know what the chorus wants to do, but I've got no hook for it, or no melody for it, or whatever it might be. And it's just a fixing job. And I was like, that sounds like a good job.
Yeah, well, it could be interesting, just tweaking things to help people out. I think I'd almost be a danger of wanting to go too far and say, well, I've done the chorus, but I thought, what about if you change this bit and this bit?
Well, you could do that and then go use it for another song. So, got that time in the episode again. Good causes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kath and I spoke about the Percy Hedley Foundation, which again, when we spoke about it and then when I've done further looking into it afterwards, great cause, great charity, helping families, and it's that part, isn't it, of like having a person or child who's got either a disability or something wrong with them, and supporting the family as well. So, great cause.
There's been a lot of that, I think, in the ones that we've covered so far, is that there's obviously the impact on the person who has whatever it is, but then there's always a massive knock-on impact to the family as well, and it needs to be, support for everyone involved in whatever it is that people are going through, and I think that's good to see that there's a growing focus on.
Yeah, and I know Children in Need's just been recently as well, and they highlight charities like this as well, the ones that are specific to certain communities. So yeah, we'll put the details in the show notes. So yeah, definitely check it out. But again, thanks to Kath for talking to us, and hope you enjoyed the show.
Next week we're in the green room at the Stand in Newcastle with comedian, musician and actor Nick Helm, where we discuss songwriting for TV shows, cramming in detail into short songs, and how to start the songwriting process.
We've reached the end of this week's episode of Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast.
Big thank you for tuning in, and remember to stop by iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
While you're there, it would be amazing if you could leave a rating and a review.
All the show notes can be found at www.acpgmusic.com, and if you want to get in touch,
email us your questions, any feedback and any suggestions to info@acpgmusic.com.
That's it for now. Keep supporting upcoming artists.
And we'll catch you next time.